We're discussing the White House is joining the Biden campaign in pushing back against recent video clips going viral that make President Biden look as though he's confused during public events and other appearances. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre blasted the use of the misleading videos, which are edited to make the president look bad and then circulated by right-wing media and allies. Take a look.
They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation, disinformation. I think that it tells you everything that we need to know about how desperate Republicans are here. And instead of talking about the president's performance in office, and what I mean by that is his legislative wins, what he's been able to do for the American people across the country, we're seeing these deep fakes, these manipulated videos. And it is, again, done in bad faith.
Wow. That's all they've got.
The Republican accounts circulating many of the clips responded, claiming the videos are unedited and promised to keep posting them.
A lie.
And also, just if something is unedited, it's
really
one angle,
lies.
not showing the whole story.
How about this, Mia? They lie about their lies, which of course you would expect liars to lie about their lies.
Oh, I mean, we're talking about Trump.
But they're lying about their cheap fake.
The Washington Post.
By the way, I got to say this one more time. They're only helping Joe Biden. They're only lowering expectations. They do it before every State of the Union address. And then afterwards, they're so freaked out that Biden did well, they say he must have been on cocaine. A sort of, 2024 version of, maybe an Eric Clapton song in the background. But they're doing the same thing for the debate. They lower expectations. Yeah. They say he's not cogent. And then he goes out and he does a really good job. And they're like, wait, what happened?
The Washington Post has reported about how these cheap fakes were used to attack Biden during his recent trip to Normandy. And we showed you last week the Trump campaign sharing a clip which appeared to show President Biden at the G7 summit wandering off from other world leaders before the Italian prime minister comes over to alert him about a group photo. But when you see the video from a different angle, you see the whole story. After a skydiver landed in front of the president and other leaders, President Biden turns to his left where there are troops. The president appears to say something to them and gives them the thumbs up before he's tapped on the arm by the Italian prime minister. As these cheap fakes continue to circulate, there is growing concern that attempts to fact check them may not be able to keep up. As one Democratic strategist puts it, quote, the lie is sprinting the 100-meter dash and the fact check is taking a stroll on the beach. So it's never going to catch up and it's never going to have the same reach. And this is the problem. And this is why, the debate, everything about this campaign will make somebody who is in support of democracy and perhaps would even choose Joe Biden over Donald Trump just in support of democracy, never going to have a chance against lies, disinformation, and crazy insults.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. Since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
He's smart. He's on his game.
His mental acuity is great.
This is a very sharp president.
And the people that I've talked to say he's as sharp as a tack. He's fine.
They say he's sharp. There's not a problem. He was sharp. He was sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
The president is sharp and he is tireless.
He is sharp as ever.
And he's fine. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
His brain is good. He's still great.
He is sharp in meetings. I believe the people who say that behind closed doors, Joe Biden remains sharp.
In meetings, Joe Biden is sharp.
He's sharp. He's fit.
There is nothing to these challenges, these suggestions that somehow he's not sharp. He's sharp as a tack.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death.
Actually, Joe Biden is sharper and has more mental acuity than Donald Trump, because more people believe that actually Joe Biden His mental acuity is better than Donald Trump.
I mean, he's sharp. He's funny. He's sharp as a tack.
Kamala Harris says he is up to this task. He's, sharp as a tack.
He's smart. He's energetic. One of the themes this election cycle is that Joe Biden is too old to lead. And so everyone is seizing upon this. And it is a classic disinformation tactic. If you edit it in such a way, you can make it appear that he fits this narrative, that he is slow, that he is wandering off.
I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
President Biden has proven himself to have a strong memory.
He has a great memory.
His mind is just as quick as that.
He is sharp enough.
Biden was sharp and on top of it.
President Biden is sharp. He's focused. He's bright.
The president is sharp as a tack. Sharp as a tack.
President Biden's doctors say he is in good physical and cognitive health.
Joe Biden, sharp as a tack.
The president was sharp as a tack.
The president's very sharp because he is so sharp and he's on top of everything.
He seems right on top of it. The man is competent, alert,
Fully cognizant and sharp.
He's completely mentally sharp.
He's sharp. He's engaged.
He is sharp. He is engaged, and he is commanding.
That's pretty sharp.
Mentally sharp.
Biden was sharp.
Sharp and substantive.
He is very sharp.
And then he's as sharp as a tack.
Biden is sharp.
The president is sharp and as able as ever.
This is a man that's on his game.
He was focused. His recall was good.
He was actually quite sharp and on top of it.
He is on the ball.
And you're going to see how smart he is. And
This guy's as sharp as a knife.
Tonight, he may have to channel both the president in him and the bruising, brawling candidate in him, and maybe a little bit of Eminem in his famous 8-mile rap battle.
I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm from a household where the kitchen table, things weren't able to be met during the month was a problem.
You see him interact. You see him engage. He took some questions and is sharp with his answers.
What I did, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare
He's actually perfectly sharp. He's totally focused. He's very sharp. And the proof is in the performance.
I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay. And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans.
I'm telling you, this guy's tough. He's smart. He's on his game.
And there's no question that Biden presents stronger, younger, more energetic.
The president has no impairment.
I see his vigor. I see his energy. I say his age is an asset.
I think he's better than he's ever been.
President Joe Biden had just one simple job in last night's debate: to convince America that he's fit to serve. The bar was set at ankle height, but the president tripped straight over it. He faltered, he mumbled, he lost, and his race must surely now be over for the good of democracy and his country. There were so many toe-curling incidents in last night's debate. We'll analyze and dissect them in detail. But the defining moment, the moment they're calling the kill shot, was this.
total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
I don't think anyone did. Well, for possibly the first time ever in a TV event starring Donald Trump, no one's talking about Donald Trump today. And for the first time ever, that will suit him just fine. Republicans briefed for weeks that President Biden will be on drugs for this debate. But if he took anything at all last night, it was surely Valium. For all the spin about cheap fakes and Biden's secret vigor, this was a chance for the American people to judge their president for themselves. And to the palpable distress and dismay of Democrats everywhere, it was really all over in the first minute.
The $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. In a situation is we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price of around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
I didn't understand a word of that, did you? It couldn't really get much worse for Biden after that, but it didn't get any better. It just carried on that way. Trump was disciplined and measured by his own standards. All he had to do was really let Biden fall into his own traps. And his facial expressions alone were enough to win the contest. Trump looked how we all felt at home watching, bewildered that the man standing opposite is the most powerful man in the world, the president of the United States, the leader of the free world. Biden just looked bewildered.
I've been calling this a cover-up. I've been calling this a major cover-up for days now, because that's the only way to describe what the White House and the Biden family and the media have engaged in for years and years and years. Again, we have seen with our own eyes exactly what is going on with Joe Biden. Mentally, physically, we have seen it. We have heard it. And what were we told 4 years ago when they had to keep him in the basement for his campaign? When they had to drag his carcass over the finish line because, God forbid, Donald Trump win a second term? What were we told? It's a stutter, guys. It's just a stutter. And then just a couple of months ago, when Robert Hur, the special counsel investigating Joe Biden's illegal use and handling of classified documents, put out his statement that said, yeah, he broke the law, but we're not going to bring charges against him because a jury would never convict him, considering the fact he can't even remember when his son died, let alone any other facts. He is so mentally incapable of defending himself in a court of law that we will not charge him with breaking the law. We pointed that out. We talked about it. We said this is devastating. And what happened? What happened? Every single major Democrat, every single major media figure, and every employee of the White House, including Kamala Harris, the vice president, all said that Robert Hur was lying. That Robert Hur, remember Joe Scarborough? This is malpractice. I can't believe that he did this. Is outrageous, right? They all said that behind closed doors, Joe Biden is sharp as a tack. They all kept saying the same thing. He's sharp as a tack. I've never seen him. He's at the top of his game. Take a quick look at this montage that was put together of these Democrats, every single one of them engaged in the cover-up. Watch.
President Biden is absolutely it.
He has knowledge of the issues. He has strategic thinking about legislating, all in the head.
I have spoken with the president. He is fully coherent. He is on top of details.
He's sharp. He's fit. He's always answering questions.
I think that Joe Biden's mental acuity is very, very on. He's one of the smartest, sharpest people I've met in D.C.
There's no doubt in my mind that the president is mentally fit for office.
Joe Biden rightly says that he has grown very wise in his many decades in public office.
As it stands today, you believe that President Biden is clear, candid, and convincing.
100%. Joe Biden needs to be allowed to be Joe Biden. He is energizing. He cares about issues. He's Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, there's nobody better than Joe Biden.
We see Joe Biden up close. We know how attuned he is to the issues, how informed he is. And I debate with him about legislation, and not debate, but discuss it with him. He's right there.
I strongly support President Biden. He has an incredible track record of success and accomplishments.
Puts many of us to shame with his energy.
Clearly, this president is fit to serve.
Joe Biden has vision. He has knowledge. He has a strategic thinker. This is a very sharp president.
And nobody is better equipped to do that than Joe Biden. He has the experience. He has the wisdom. He has the demeanor.
I was in Israel on October 7th, as you know, and President Biden was nice enough to call me. And I can tell you, this was the day before that interview. I can tell you he was sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
It always seemed very clear to me that he had the energy and the ability.
Is he capable of being a president? Absolutely.
I think he's actually really good. I think his staff overprotects him. I think put him out there in a press conference. Who cares if someone makes a gaffe?
What I find interesting is that the issue is more around ageism and ableism, and not what this President Biden has done.
I think he has every ability and every confidence to continue to be commander-in-chief.
I think the more he's out there, the better.
President Biden has proven himself to have a strong memory.
You don't do that unless you're mentally competent and capable, and he certainly is.
They're all liars. They're all bald-faced liars. They're either lying about actually witnessing the president, because anyone who has witnessed the president up close and personal, like they claim to have witnessed him, has got to see what we've all seen from a distance. So they're either lying about being in close proximity with Joe Biden, or they're lying about what they saw when they were in close proximity with Joe Biden. You cannot tell me that what we see every single day from a distance through a well-prepared lens. You have to understand that we are allowed to see, other than at the debate, we are only allowed to see of Joe Biden what the White House allows us to see, right? This is a very, very controlled environment. When Joe Biden is out there with his Ray-Bans, he's wearing them because they don't want you to see the vacant, dilated pupil look in his eyes. That's why they give him the Ray-Bans. When Joe Biden is out there speaking into his handheld microphone, they're doing that because they don't want you to hear his shallow, weak voice picked up by regular microphones, right? We see Joe Biden in a controlled setting. Stagecraft is being executed right now by the White House. They want you to see Joe Biden walking up the short set of stairs because it's too difficult to walk up the big set of stairs. They want to see Joe Biden walking to the helicopter in the South Lawn surrounded by staff so that it's not as evident that he is walking with such a stilted gait. That's why they put people around him now, unlike they used to. They put him in special shoes that look like they've got kayaks attached to them so that he looks more stable than he really is. Everything about this is an illusion and stagecraft to make you see only what they allow you to see. And even with all of that, you can see that the man is mentally and physically diminished, unfit for office.
They have controlled the media so that everybody started saying that
that Biden was sharp as a tack at the same time. And their media was like, well, okay, whatever. So we can see that they control the media, although the media finally gave up on them on the Biden brain thing, only because they had to. Only because they had to. If the debate hadn't happened, the media would still be covering up for Biden. Just think about that. They'd still be covering, except for the debate. If the public had not found out on their own, basically doing their own research by watching the debate, the news never would have told you. That's just mind-blowing that we had to see it ourselves, and they never would have told us.
It's an extraordinary state of affairs. There have been two incumbent Democrat presidents since World War II who have stood down an election year, Truman and Johnson. Slightly different circumstances. I think in both those cases, there was a fear they may lose primaries, which obviously has not been a problem for Biden. But there's also the 25th Amendment. I mean, is Biden now coming into this? I saw yesterday's press secretary insisting he's not got any form of dementia. I thought that was a blatant lie. I just think you look at a guy of 81 or 2, whatever it is, he clearly has got a form of dementia. I mean, it's inarguable.
And it's not a bad thing. It happens to some people. It's not an ageist thing. You know, you look at Alan Dershowitz, that guy is 85 and sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
So it's not just it's an important thing for the president to be clear-minded. I think they're lying to you again as well. The 25th Amendment, however, smartly was written after Kennedy, that it can only be the president, the vice president, and the cabinet. So it's his own party. And the cabinet and the vice president have to agree. Congress can't do it. There's no laws that can be passed or anything else. No one else can take him out. That's important so you don't have political games going on to take the president out all the time. But I don't think that these people in Washington, they've been running their own departments and their own show now for a while. I would imagine they'd be like, why would we? I mean, we've already been doing it for all this time. We haven't really needed him. Just leave it alone. Why change horses when you don't need to?
Yeah.
In their opinion, I think.
There's a former Biden aide Michael LaRosa, he used to be the press secretary for Jill Biden, so he's not anymore. But he says, quote, he said, I want to get his exact quotes. He said, Jesus Christ, what's with all the gaslighting? So this Biden aide has realized that he worked for a group that does nothing but make up stories about the gaslighting. So he's out. He lashed down at the White House's former communications director, Kate Bedingfield, and argued that she was gaslighting the American people. Just hold this in your head. Michael LaRosa, he was the press secretary for the First Lady, Jill Biden. That's about as inside as you can be. And he's telling the world publicly, they are gaslighting you. He's telling you he knew from the inside. He's saying they're gaslighting you. And they are. And then from there, we get the holy shit moment that goes like this. I'm watching this debate between Trump and Biden. Holy shit. Was the entire media landscape lying to me about Biden's mental acuity? Wait, they were all lying, except the people that I thought only do fake news? Okay, maybe I'm not understanding this. Let me see if I can understand this. Are you telling me that 100% of the media that I consume knew that Biden had bad brain, but acted like he didn't? But the media that I was told, they all told me this is the fake news. The Fox News is, the Breitbart. Why did they get it right from the start? But my news got it all wrong, every single one of them. Huh. And now why are they pretending they didn't know until the debate? Why are they gaslighting me that this was a big surprise that snuck up on them? How could they possibly have been surprised by this? Well, at least all of the big surprises are over. Well, if this describes you and you're a Democrat and you're on your path to waking up to what has been done to you, let me tell you where it's going next. This will be you in maybe a few years. At least I know climate change isn't totally made up. I mean, how could 97% of scientists be wrong? So at least I have something to cling to. That, yeah, maybe it is true that my team lied to me about really important stuff, like really important. And it is true that they do ops where they make up an entire story, like the laptop and like Russia collusion. So it's not just being wrong. There's actually coordinated operations to create narratives that weren't real. Huh. Well, I want to give you a spoiler if that's where you are. So if you are at the point where you're starting to question all those other things that have been confirmed not to be true, that you were once told were true, This is what you're going to find out next. Now, I want you to sit down, because this isn't going to be easy if you're a Democrat. Sit down. Seriously, sit down. The only way that 97% of experts could be wrong about climate change would be exactly the way they were wrong about the pandemic, key facts about the pandemic, and the same way that 97% of journalists told you that Joe Biden was mentally fine. Do you see the pattern yet? That 97% of experts in every field have no predictive power so long as they also have bosses. That's the pattern. You saw the wrong pattern. If you think the pattern is if 97% of the experts agree, that must be true. That's not the pattern. The pattern is that if all the people who have a boss say it's true, then you've heard nothing. That would be the same as no information. Because the boss, whoever the boss is, or in this case it might be entities that do grants and funding, people who give you money basically. If they have to agree with the narrative because they're an entity and trying to operate in the real world, and they have to make their customers and stockholders happy, the big entities don't really have an option of bucking something as important as climate change. So they make sure that their employees and the people they give grants to are all on the same page. But the person who's the expert is not the boss. The expert needs to get paid. If there's one thing we know for sure, experts will either shut up if they don't want to lie, or they will lie. Sometimes they don't know they're lying because money will distort you that way. It's like, no, I'm not lying. I just need money. So that's your next surprise. And I think for a while, I'm going to back off on explaining to people why climate science is bullshit. Which, by the way, I don't know if the climate is warming, and I don't know how much, if anything, human activity matters. I'm just saying that what they're telling you is obvious bullshit. I don't know what the truth is. I just know what they're telling you isn't.
It's great to welcome to the program today Nicholas Kristof, columnist for the New York Times, also author of the new memoir, Chasing Hope, A Reporter's Life. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. Thanks.
Great to be with you.
So, listen, I've tried to be as honest as I can with my audience at every point in this election, based on all of the information that's known to me about what I think is likely and what I think is best in what I think is the important effort to prevent Donald Trump from serving another term. If I understand your latest position correctly, it seems that you recognize the great achievements of President Biden in this first term and believe that it would not be the best thing for him to be the Democratic nominee this time around. Fair assessment?
Exactly. Yeah. And I say that with sadness. I've known Biden for decades. I admire him. He had a great term, but the reason he was chosen 4 years ago was that he could win. And that is not true this time, I believe.
Who do you think, if anyone, prevented this conversation from becoming as real and urgent as it seems to be today, with Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, et cetera, saying that the time may have come? Should this conversation have happened sooner? And if so, why do you think it did not?
Well, it clearly should have. And, I think that the job of campaign and aides and White House aides has tended to be to protect whoever is the occupant of that post. And so they protect that person by, not making them available for tough interviews and not making them available in the evening, et cetera. And they thought that they could carry this through until November. And it might have worked. Biden does seem to be on most of the time, but he's off enough of the time that, there was a risk of a catastrophe, and that happened in the first debate.
Was your opinion before the debate, or let me put it a different way. If you look at someone like Alan Lichtman, his framework essentially disregards what happened at the debate. Not 100%, but close to it, arguing it doesn't change the structural foundation of incumbency, the state of the economy, et cetera. I'm curious your take in terms of how much that debate on June 27th changed your perspective.
That changed my perspective, overwhelmingly. Until then, I had thought that Republicans were exaggerating the impact of his age. I thought that they were, we saw these kind of fake clips where they were, they seemed to have to rely on this artificiality to suggest that he was senile or something. And then in that first debate, there was a horrifying sense that, wow, he really does suffer from cognitive capacity problems at least some of the time. And it's hard to know how often, but that he will not be an effective candidate. And also, it's not just about politics, that one has to be concerned about what will happen if there is a foreign policy crisis in the middle of the night. And I think he has great aides around him who I think would help. But fundamentally, you want the president himself to be coherent at 2 a.m. And I think there were real doubts about that. Before the end of the debate, I had tweeted that that President Biden should withdraw from the race because it was so apparent that this just could not continue.
How do arguments like, and I'll give you a list of them, arguments like, I don't vote for debate performance, I vote for performance in the Oval Office and it's been good. Or if you read a transcript of the debate, it's 90% better. Or those sorts of reactions. How do those strike you?
So I don't buy the bad debate night kind of argument that fundamentally what we saw was not just a bad debate. This was the worst debate in the history of debates going back to 1960. And it showed not just slowness, it showed it just showed a real cognitive impairment. We had a convicted felon who was inarticulate, who's a weak candidate, who beat Joe Biden, who I've known as a smart guy. And as for the point that he had a great first term, I think that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. But in homes across the country, we have these difficult conversations with elderly parents about taking away the car keys. And those parents, they insist, I can drive. I'm not going far. Look, I haven't had a ticket in X years. I haven't had a crash. But what happens in the last 4 years is not a good predictor of what's going to happen in the next 4 years. And if every household in the country can have the responsibility to have these difficult conversations with elderly people whom they love, then I think the Democratic Party has to be able to have that conversation as well.
Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered.
Wait,
and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters. It's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Time's up. Thank you. We're done.
Thank you.
I want to save you. Thank you.
That had to be tough for Denabash and Jake Tapper because he's not making any sense, and all they can do is say thank you. We're moving on now.
Does anyone have a camera in the Democrats' spin room at that moment?
Oh, I know.
They had to have been losing their mind.
This X post from Russell Brand. We're 17 minutes in. Joe Biden is discussing the problem of people being raped by their brothers and sisters.
And spouses.
Which is quite an extraordinary yet niche topic to discuss.
That's good. I'm glad he said 17 minutes in. Because again, that is the major part of the audience. That's your undecided voters. That's people that casually follow politics are watching early on and saw that and were like, what was that?
It's priceless.
I tell you.
That debate last night was priceless because it proved everything we've been saying for the last 4 years, and especially concentrating on these last 6 months where his degradation, his mental capacity has diminished so badly that you can call it a cheap fake, I guess, if you want, but
they can't do that.
They can't do that on this
any longer, and
they can't do it from last night.
These same people that have been when we get to the post debate coverage, these are the same people that have been telling us for how long that he's sharp.
Oh, he's fine.
Behind the scenes,
sharpest guy in the room.
He is doing jumping jacks and backflips, and then he's breaking down foreign policy like nobody I've ever seen.
CNN's
unbelievable.
CNN's Chris Cillizza last night. This is mind-numbing to me. He said, let me see. Where do I have that? Okay, he said, no, that's not it either. Where did I have that? Chris Cillizza quote. Okay, he said, look, this debate was a total and complete disaster for Biden. He looked old. His answers trailed off repeatedly. He was hard to understand. He would stop in mid-sentence and move on to something else. I never, he emphasized and capitalized every letter, I never thought he would be this bad. Stunning, truly. No, what is stunning, Chris, is where have you been?
Thank you.
Welcome to planet Earth. We have been telling you this for years.
And documenting it. Yeah. I'm just documenting it every time.
It's gotten to the point where every day we're going through a dozen Biden clips going, do we want to do Biden again?
We're saying, there it is again.
Yeah.
I mean, we're tired of seeing it.
Right. I mean, is nobody watching this? How are you running this guy for president?
It's Top 40 Radio. I can't play that song again. and they're requesting it again.
Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you, Crane. The administration strongly criticized the media for clips showing the president appearing to be confused, freezing at times, and you called it cheap fakes, misinformation, disinformation. In one case, even implied that it was the product of artificial intelligence, calling it deep fakes. Do you have any regret over using that language?
Not at all. Not at all. And let me be clear, it was a certain part of the media. I mean, you can speak to this better than I can, a certain part of the media which was doing this. And look, independent mainstream fact checkers in the press and misinformation experts have been calling out cheap fakes. And at the end of the day, they're fakes. That's what they were, targeting the president. They had said, the reporters and these misinformation experts said that this president was being targeted. And what we did was echo them. That's what we did. And look, we'll certainly just continue to call that out. And the cheap fakes didn't come from me. I didn't coin that. That didn't come from this White House or this podium. That came from the media. They called it cheap fakes. And they said this president, President Biden, was being targeted on misinformation. It was purposefully being done to this president. And what we did is we echoed that. So I don't regret it at all.
Let me say this, that everything that's happened here with Biden's cognitive state is just one in a series of hoaxes and cover-ups that the Democrat Party has transpired over the last several years. It's gotten to the point where you have to wonder, can these guys even run a presidential campaign without hoaxes? You had the Steele dossier, okay? You have the whole suckers and losers hoax. You have the very fine people hoax. You have the this is the best version of Biden hoax. You had the whole cheap fake hoax. And you've just got to wonder, is this a party who deserves the trust of the American people? I think that Trump deserves another term just as a rebuke to all of the misinformation and lies that the Democratic Party has told about him. And I think that he should win.
I think he's better than he's ever been.